All right, so I have tried reworking this topic through having ChatGPT act as a man that just lost his family wages, his $100,000 a year plus job in sales, right? So base sales, 100 grand, bonuses, 120, 140, depending on how well he did that year. But that job's gone. And as I was talking to my physical therapist today, it's the first thing she said to me. It's like my husband lost his job last week. And then I thought to myself, how many more of these people do I have to meet? People who are truly on the verge. Like the receptionist this morning, for she's living with her 80-year-old parents because she can't find a job in which she can make living wages. And she's a part time professor at a community college. These aren't people who aren't educated like myself. I keep telling people I'm the most educated person I know. And when you think about these scenarios that are happening to people, all of these people have college degrees. All of these people have worked in disgusting, humiliating, low paying jobs throughout their entire lives, like myself. I have a friend from work who's deeply concerned right now as to what's going to happen to me. I mean, to the point where she's asking me to let her write my resume. And I'm like, there she is again. That's the person who's been unemployed from the call center now for 5 weeks, and no one's called her back. She's not going to find a job in this economy. And that's the problem with these people is they're not going to find jobs. And it's hard to tell people this. You're not going to find a good job. And she refuses to believe me. It took me 3 years of looking for work for this piece of crap job I currently have. 3 years of sitting at home waiting by the phone for someone to call me back. And then you think about it, because this is something we talked about today in our conversation, because she's run into this terrible situation in her own job right now, because even her job, which is the only money they have coming into her household, this job for her is not sustainable. She's gotten herself into a situation where she's part owner of the business, but as she put it, she can't find anyone to work for her. Number one, the wages are too low. Number two, the skill isn't there. And number three, there's no ambition to work because no one wants to work anymore. And when you walk into a business like hers, and the only time people will book appointments in this entire business is if it's with her. And the owner of the business, the full owner of the business, because she's part owner, has looked at the way that hiring more people has affected the business. And the only time people will book appointments is with her. No one else gets any appointment. No one else has any clients. So she has to stay there, and she's completely booked on Sunday. She's completely booked on a Tuesday. And every other day her schedule fills up. But even if they have one or two other people, no one will fill those appointments. And she's just like, she looked at me today. It's like, millennial team, what am I supposed to do if I can't find workers who can do this job? And it's, what happens to a business like this? It goes under. So I tried to find the least biased way of writing this, but this is still a very hard thing for me to talk about on YouTube because it's real. This is affecting people right now in real time. And we don't know what we're going to do. This coworker of mine is extremely worried that I am going to end up homeless. Has the thought crossed my mind? Of course, I don't have anything to fall back on. And so when you think about it in those terms, you're just like, okay, well, what's plan B for America once you lose the job that they're not going to replace? As I've reported on this on many occasions, and this is exactly what happened to her husband as well. The job paid too much money. They broke it up into five other jobs, back into entry level, and they're going to hire people for as close to nothing as humanly possible because they know they can find workers, because the desperation among workers is real. When this man who's worked here for 8 years has to start looking for fast food jobs, there are going to be consequences. And with that said, let me get into my three talking points. Today's going to be a little longer on the talking points because the AI generated better, more human like talking points. So let's get into talking point number one. Long term job security is increasingly unreliable even for experienced professionals with years of loyalty. Stories of workers being suddenly laid off after years of dedicated service underscore a growing trend where stable careers are no longer guaranteed, leaving families vulnerable to financial instability with little notice. These the loss of these higher paying jobs is going to mean that there is going to be another crisis. If America needs anything right now, it's not another crisis, because we already have the crisis of men not working. Now you're going to start seeing the unraveling of men that were working who can no longer find the jobs to support the lifestyle that they have created. And this happened back in 2008 as well, when the financial institutions crashed, when we had the Wall Street thing happen with the banks, all of those high paying jobs went away. And I remember I was sitting at a bus stop with a guy that worked in one of those companies. His company worked right next to mine, and they cut him off. He had a family, he had a bunch of kids, and he had a wife that was pregnant. This man was worried sick about what was going to happen. And I'm certain what happened to him is what happens to every other man who can't bring home the money that's necessary. Your family leaves you. Because as a breadwinner, if you're not winning bread, if you want to work at Taco Bell and have a family, there are consequences for that. They're just going to pack up the car and they're going to leave you. And unfortunately, that's what I see happening in this situation, because if it's leaving families financially vulnerable to the fact that the men can no longer bring home the necessary resources, that men by themselves are going to go into survival mode. This means that everything that they care about, from their dog to their car to whatever resources that they manage to accrue, because we are living in a society where money buys a lot less. And in order to accrue resources, you have to find yourself in a place where you can have resources. And you if you don't have resources, you don't have anything. So, with that said, let's move on to talking point number two. Many professionals are being forced into entry level, low wage positions such as fast food or part time work after losing their main income sources. This shift highlights a troubling reality. These jobs, while essential, often don't provide livable wages, making it nearly impossible to sustain a family. The lack of future prospects in these positions traps people in a cycle of economic struggle, compounding the financial pressures families face. And that's exactly why we're going to have tens of millions of broken families. I've seen it myself over many years, where the husband loses the good job and the family just crumbles. He may even crumble himself. Like, I know someone at my current job, or my former current job, wherever, at the place where I go every day. And this happened. Her husband lost his job. He became addicted to substances, and not very much longer, they found him on a city bus bench. That he'd been long gone before anyone called anyone for assistance, and it was addiction that got him. I mean, what are you supposed to do once you lose everything? I mean, there's no real choice. There's nothing for you out there. Go through Indeed, go on LinkedIn, look at these websites, look at the requirements, look at what they want, and look at a person who's been working in the same job for any long term amount. The It doesn't match up. I've been looking for another job for months. I haven't seen anything even close to my pay bracket. And the reason for that is corporations, they don't care what they're doing. It doesn't hurt them in any conceivable way. It doesn't hurt their feelings. They don't care whether or not you have money. What they care about is that they are more profitable. And it's much more profitable to have a bunch of entry level people rather than a 40-year-old man that's got four kids and a wife to support. You don't want that guy anymore in your business, and they're letting you know that they don't want you there. And it's not like you're just going to wake up the next day and be like, oh, look, I found the exact same job. No, you're going to find the work that's suitable for someone that has nothing. You're going to go back to entry level work, and that's where you're going to stay for your entire career. And I'm not talking about someone else here, I'm talking about myself here. I have never had a good job in my entire life. My entire life I've spent looking for jobs at the bottom. I can't imagine what that feels like for a person without an education or a person that's just settled at the bottom. When I go to Kroger's and I see the employees that have been there since 2008, I just look at them like, you're never going to leave. And if they screw up at work, they know that the consequences for them are dire. And that's just what they understand. Even low level employees know that having a $300 paycheck a week is better than having $0 a week paycheck. And so they can't afford to live in any conceivable way. Most people that fall from a high paying job will go right back to a level in life in which they're just barely scraping by. Like me after college, where I was spending more than 85% of my monthly income in rent to rent a room from a slum lord that I found on Craigslist. And this is where we're at. I mean, rooms are going for nearly $1,000 a month because rent is outrageous. And because they know they can get people to pay that. It's either you pay the $1,000 or you become homeless. It's not really much of a decision there. Either you're going to be able to make that kind of money or you're not. As a man with a lot of responsibility right now is the worst possible time to be out there looking for any sort of work. In fact, I think one of my most popular videos on the last channel was that girl, I think it was in New York, that was wandering around crying, passing out paper resumes. And I think she had two liberal arts degrees and had some other very basic education. And she was complaining about how she couldn't find work and how not even a coffee shop would hire her. Can you imagine being a senior level employee that's over 40 and you're going to go back into a workplace that's hostile towards you? Because they know that a person that has responsibility in this country is going to be an expensive worker. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need a high wage. You're going to need stability. And none of those things corporate America wants to offer. Literally, this country's become minimum wage all the way up to the top. And this is where it's going to stay. This model for the workplace, this is the way it's going to be. They're going to need less workers and they're going to need much more low quality workers that work as temps, as temporary workers for the rest of their lives. This isn't a phase America's going through. We're not just going to go through this phase like your emo phase. This is a restructuring of the basic job in America. And as a person who suffered under this system my entire life, because remember, call centers, warehouse, retail, food, that's all I've ever done for a living. And yet, you're expected to go out there and somehow be successful. And I assure you, you're not. The only reason that I've managed to hold as many tech jobs as I've had throughout my life is because I worked at the university while I was going to school. And these part time tech jobs were what I did while I was going through school. I didn't really have time for a full time job working, let's say at Amazon in a warehouse. I'd have to do those types of jobs once I wasn't in school, and as soon as I went back to school, I went back to the work that I could find at the school. Anyhow, talking point number three. As financial strain increases, more families are being pushed into difficult, often heartbreaking decisions. In many cases, one parent might end up taking the children to live with relatives while the other scrambles to survive financially. This fragmentation of family units reflects the bleak choices many are forced to make to keep a roof over their heads in an economy that's growing increasingly unforgiving. That's a great word for ChatGPT to use. We live in a world that's unforgiving for the proletariat. The proletariat is out there doing as much as they can. You are shaking it as much as you can, but you're talking about people being forced into things, into the type of work that I would say is not suitable for a middle aged person. In fact, we had this funny moment today. So I was telling her that some of these girls that I know that aren't finding real jobs are having to turn to the internet for, let's say, questionable labor practices. And so I told her, it's like, well, you know what? I've got pretty feet. And then she's just like, she wanted to know how her feet ranked. So even though I've known her for 6 months, probably a year now, she whipped off her little booty and she like stuck her toes next to mine and she's like, "What do you think? Can I make money on Feet Finder?" And I'm like, "It's gonna be rough." And she's like, "I need to paint them a better color." And I was like, "Oh my God, these are the decisions Americans are making right now. Are my feet cute enough to sell pictures? Because I'm not going to find a stable job." That's how bad it is in America. We're turning to the feet economy here in order to be able to make it. And I was just like, I was looking at mine and I was looking at hers and I thought she was going to ask me to pay. That's where we were at today. She was just wiggling her toes at me and I'm like, well, they're not the best looking feet out there, but they're still feet and there's something for everyone. Remember that. When you think of what you have out there, there's something for everyone. And you have to just like kind of look around and think to yourself, you know, am I really going to do this? And that was the end of our conversation today. Do I really want to do this? And she said that because of her spiritual nature, there's no way that she could sell anything on Fans or Feet Finder. And I was like, you know, you have to know what you're willing to do. And if things get bad enough and you're selling feet pictures as a mid 30s aged woman because your husband's working at Chipotle, you have to realize that that's not a sustainable future. This society is so unforgiving to people that it's almost as if it was intentionally planned to ruin everyone financially and force them into these terrible scenarios in which where she's going to have to make the decision at some point. If things get so bad, if they lose the house, they lose the cars, you're not making car payments working at McDonald's. I assure you, the cars are going to go away. Everything is going to go away. If your family isn't wealthy enough to come in and take care of you, you're in trouble. If your family's not there with that good job, you're in trouble. If you don't have an alternative way of making money, if you have been part of the proletariat your whole life and the only way that you can support yourself is by selling your labor isn't worth anything to the corporations anymore. You are in trouble, just like I'm in big trouble right now. And there's no way we're going to get out of the way of this catastrophe that's unfolding in real time.